Hey, what's up? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing another installment in my What I've Watched series. And if you didn't know, if you're new to my channel, I am primarily a channel about books, but every now and then I do love to make videos about the recent TV shows and movies that I've been consuming, because I'm also a huge lover of film and TV. And so I started this series on my channel called What I've Watched, and I think this is the 13th installment of that series where I just talk about the recent movies and TV shows that I've been watching over the last few months. I've been watching so much good TV and so many good movies over the last few months, especially during spooky season. I actually got to a lot of the movies that I had on my checklist this year. Like, I actually prioritized the time and watched a lot of spooky movies. It was great. However, before we do jump into the video, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning that there are no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes so that you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. Skillshare is really great and really useful to anybody that's wanting to learn a new skill, or to someone who already has some good skills but would like to hone in on the things that they're really good at and learn even more. I just started recently taking this class called YouTube Success, Build an Authentic Channel That's Worth the Follow. And even though I've been on YouTube for several years now, I just find classes like this to be really inspiring, and it motivates me to want to do better and to be a better creator. And I don't know, as a content creator, I love hearing advice from other content creators, and it's really cool because this class is actually taught by this woman who's on YouTube. And I think classes like this are especially useful to those who are looking to start a platform on YouTube. But of course, if that class does not interest you, they do have classes in many other creative topics like photography, illustration, design, directing, cinematography, like it's all there. So with that being said, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to go and click the link in the description, it's gonna get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare's premium membership so that you can also explore your creativity. Isn't that so freaking cool? Like a whole month so that you can go and test out, learn a new skill. That's exciting. Yeah, thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. And now let's jump into the movies and TV shows. Do you like this vibe that I have going on in my room right now? I was just wondering because I bought this new sunset lamp on Amazon, and it's like this lamp that you see behind me, this like projecting this beautiful color. I'm kind of obsessed. And of course I have my regular lights on in the room as well, and I think it's like such a fun, cozy vibe in here. But anyways, let's just go ahead and jump right into the things because I've watched a lot of things. I'll start with the TV shows because why not? The first TV show I want to mention is one that I haven't actually finished yet. I'm a little bit behind, but I wanted to mention it anyway because I'm loving it so much already so far, and that's Only Murders in the Building. This one is actually on Hulu. This is a show that is just absolutely so much fun. It's a murder mystery show. It has Steve Martin and Selena Gomez in it. Like, what more do you want? Really cool though, because this whole show is about how there's, a murder in their building, and these three protagonists and like main characters in the show, they're very obsessed with like true crime podcasts, which I just think makes them like so cute and so relatable. And the whole premise of the show is how after there's a murder in their building, they think that there's like more to the story because they don't exactly believe like what the police are thinking has happened. So they decide to create their own true crime podcast called Only Murders in the Building. They start to do their own little investigating into what they think happened to this man. And it's just so cute, and it's like so fun and like lighthearted, but also like a really compelling mystery. I don't know, I just love everything about it so far. I think I only have like 3 or maybe 4 episodes left of it. I can't remember how long of a series this is, but it's just so cute so far. I love everything about it. I love the characters. I love their chemistry. It's a great time. And then there's the show Clickbait. Oh my gosh, we binge watched this show so freaking quickly when it came out in like September or August or whenever it came out. And this show is like one of my favorite ideal kind of like murder mystery thriller kind of shows. It's just so fascinating, I also love thrillers and like murder mystery kind of stuff like this that involves technology and like media in some way, because the main premise of this TV show is that this guy gets abducted, and then the abductors start to stream a video of him online holding up a sign. I can't even remember what it originally says. I think it either says he killed someone or that he raped a woman or something like that, and then he holds up another sign that says like, if this video gets 5 million views, then I die, or something like that. And it's just, it's crazy, because then of course this video starts spreading like rapid fire. Everybody in the freaking world is seeing this, and we get to follow this wild, like really wild story about what happens to this man and his family. And I was just so invested. I feel like this is a thriller mystery that's just done so well. Like, I was immediately gripped from the first episode, and then after even like the third episode, I was like, wow, like how is there this many more episodes? Because you feel like you have a grasp on the whole story and like what's going on, but then no. And I'm happy, because I thought that I had this shit figured out. Okay, I thought I did. I was like, I knew it going into the finale. I was like, I knew it. And then no, I did not know anything. And I love being surprised like that. That is my favorite shit. So because of that, really enjoyed this one. Then, oh my god, Midnight Mass on Netflix. Dude, Netflix has been killing the game recently, okay? Netflix has had so many good TV series lately. Midnight Mass is just exceptional. If you didn't know, it's actually from Mike Flanagan, who is the creator of The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, Hush, you know, just so many amazing things. Midnight Mass is so incredibly unique and just so haunting and dark, and just like, it's amazing. And in this show, we're following this like small little island town who's like extremely religious. This is very like religious horror, by the way, which I didn't know if I was a fan of religious horror, really. Like, I guess I never really have been in the past, but after this show, wow, I'm a huge fan of this kind of religious horror. And on this island, we're following this character who, he actually grew up on the island, but he's since moved away. But because of these certain life circumstances that happen with him, he actually finds himself moving back to the small island town, and everybody knows about what he did when he was away from the island, so they all kind of have this like perception of him, or they think a certain way about him. This show is just so intense, and it was such a slow burn, but like in the best way. Like, it just builds these characters really well. There's some really great monologues happening in this show. Like, to this day, I still think about a few different monologues that I can think of right now that are just so drilled into my brain and like still make me think right now. And this show was just, oh my god, it was a slow burn, right? Like, the first 5 episodes are so slow, it's almost like, okay, like, let's pick up the pace. But by those last like 2 or 3 episodes, oh my god, it was like I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs. Like, I couldn't believe what was going on. Like, shit went down in this show, okay? The shit went down, and it was so good. It was so good. I think something that's really crazy about this show too is that the main character of the show was like one of my least favorite characters in the show. I actually really loved the priest dude, like the pastor dude. He was probably my favorite character in the show just because he was so interesting. And also the cop who is played, he's also in The Haunting of Bly Manor. I loved his character in this. He was so good. I think he was actually the standout like favorite character for me. And then we have freaking Squid Game, which once again, a Netflix show. Squid Game is one of those shows that I think a lot of people that haven't seen it will probably think like, oh, it's probably overhyped, but I genuinely don't think that it is. I think it's one of the best shows that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the concept is just so fascinating. They're going to be playing childhood games, but the consequences of losing are deadly. Like, you literally get shot. I'm sure you've heard of like the premise of Squid Game by now, because this TV show is like literally everywhere. But like, what a freaking concept. Like, it is just so fascinating. This show is so intense. I was like literally on the edge of my seat, like couldn't even fucking breathe half of the show. And I just absolutely loved it. I love the characters so much. And this one's actually kind of strange too, because I feel the same about this one, where the main character of the show was actually my least favorite character out of all of them. Like, I just didn't care too much about his story, but all the other characters I thought had really great stories and histories and like things happening with them. And I think for sure my favorite character in the show was either the police officer dude, like I loved the police officer detective dude, he was my favorite, or the girl, of course, the girl that everybody is obsessed with. Yeah, I love her. Yeah, this show is so good, and I cried so fucking hard in episode 6. I don't think I've ever cried so hard during a TV show, at least not since like my old Walking Dead days. There were a few moments in the old Walking Dead days that made me really cry, but Squid Game was just Squid Game might be my favorite TV show of the year. Like, I just loved it. And then we watched You Season 3, which once again, Netflix killing it, absolutely killing it. And this is one that I was excited about because I am a huge fan of this TV show. Unfortunately, the third book in the You series I was not a huge fan of, so I kind of went into this season with like pretty low expectations, but I absolutely love Victoria, the girl who plays Love. She's like one of my favorite actresses. I just absolutely love her, and I think she killed it in this season, honestly. Like, I kind of enjoy watching her even more than Joe Goldberg. Like, she really steals the show for me. Like, she's amazing. And so I loved getting to see her more in this third season. Like, she was so freaking good. And I love the idea of like Joe Goldberg moving into like suburbia, you know, and being more of like the family man, like the dad, you know. It's just, oh my gosh. I just thought it was so good. It was so well done, and it was so like engaging, you know. Like, me and my sister literally binge watched this entire season in one day. This show's just really addicting. Like, I don't know how to explain what it is about this show that I just love so much, but it's just so addicting. I could just watch it forever. And then I ended up watching the Lula Rich documentary that's on Amazon, and I was really curious about this one because I had seen it going around. Like, some of my friends on Instagram were watching it, and I was just like, what is this? I'm always like down for a really interesting documentary about a company just like crumbling to the ground. I don't know why, I just find it so fascinating and entertaining. And this is like about this company that used to sell leggings, I guess. I think they still do, actually. I don't even know. But the thing that I thought was really cool about this is that their headquarters were actually in Corona, California, which is where I'm from originally. Like, I grew up in Corona, California. So I was like, what the heck? I mean, to be fair, they did not open their headquarters down there until after I already moved to Washington by that point, but still, like, wow, way to put Corona on the map for all the wrong reasons. This documentary was absolutely fascinating. I really enjoyed it. It's only 4 episodes long, and you just kind of get to see this like very strange, almost cult-like behavior that this company had with the women that worked for the company. It was just very creepy and very weird, and I really enjoyed this documentary. I finished this whole documentary in one day too. I couldn't stop watching it. And then I watched the show Made, which is, again, Netflix. Netflix literally had Clickbait, Midnight Mass, Squid Game, You, and Made. Like, all some of my favorite shows of the year. You go, Netflix, you go. But yeah, Made, holy shit, Made is one of those shows that is so hard to watch, and that shit is so heavy, because if you didn't know, it's actually based off a book, which I didn't even realize, and like, that was a book that I actually owned a few years ago. I never actually got the chance to read it, but holy shit, I was like, what? But it's based off the book, which is actually a non-fiction book. It's like her true story, her memoir. This show is about this woman who is being abused by her boyfriend, and she has this daughter with her boyfriend, and so she decides to take her daughter and go and just try to make it out there in the world. And it's kind of about how she has to take this job as a maid and just kind of, you know, start at the bottom and try to build a life for herself and her daughter. And this show was such a tough watch. Like, oh my gosh, like, the abuse obviously is hard to watch, but also just like the idea of being so poor that you just have absolutely nothing and you're just trying to make it by on like $3. It was just very sad and stressful, and it really humbles you, you know. It was just a really well done show. It was so beautiful. I really loved the way that the show was edited too was just really cool. Like, there was some certain transition shots, and like the way that it would show her finances on the screen, like, I don't know, it was just really cool. And I also just loved these characters. I mean, this show is especially hard to watch, you know, because I love Nick Robinson, and seeing him in that like kind of abusive role was not easy. It was not fun. But he did really good in this show. Like, I thought he was great in the show. And yeah, all the actors were so good in this show. I just thought it was so well done. But it was a really sad one. Like, you've been warned, it's really sad. It'll probably get to you, because it got to me for sure. And then lastly, one more show that I wanted to mention that I'm still currently watching right now is This Is Us. I'm currently catching up on the most recent season that's been airing. I only have like 4 or 5 episodes left right now as I'm filming this, but hopefully by the time this goes up, I'll be done with this season, because they announced that next year in January, it's gonna start airing the last final season of This Is Us, and I am so not emotionally prepared to say goodbye to this show. This show just means everything to me. Like, this family, it feels like they're like my family. I know it doesn't make sense. Randall is one of my favorite characters that I've ever seen in a TV show. Like, I just love him so freaking much. And especially in this season, like, I just love Randall, and I love that he's getting to know so much more of his backstory and his history, you know? No spoilers, by the way, if you're still kind of behind on This Is Us. I'll be super vague, but I just love this show so much, and I love the things that are happening for all three of the siblings in this season. Like, I also think it's really cool that this show takes place in the year 2020 for some of the clips, and so they're showing like these characters living during the pandemic, which is something that I think is a really cool choice, but I think they're doing it so well. Like, it's really well done, and they're just very respectful about everything. If that makes sense. I don't know. I'm really liking it. I'm loving it. I cry every single episode still. Like, the show remains as one of my god tier all-time favorite TV shows. Now let's jump into the movies. I've watched so many movies in the last few months, and a lot of these are scary movies because, in these last like 2 or 3 months, it's been spooky season for me. And so I've had a checklist of all of the freaking horror movies that I've never seen that I've been wanting to see. And I made my way through that checklist one by one, and I checked them off. So the first one I want to talk about is this movie called The Empty Man. This is one that I had very little expectations going into it, but I just saw that it was on HBO, and I saw a few people mentioning it. And this movie is long, okay? It's like 2.5 hours, a little bit too long in my opinion. But this movie was really interesting. I actually think the first like 10 to 15 minutes of this movie could be its own short film, because the first 10 to 15 minutes feel completely separate than the rest of the movie. And the first 10 to 15 minutes are so freaking good. It's like easily the best part of the movie, I think, in my opinion. But also, this is just a really interesting story. It is a horror movie. It is pretty scary. Like, there's no moments I can think that I really like jumped in this movie, but it's just this constant unsettling uneasiness. There were a few scenes though that I was like, oh shit, oh god. But also, like, the ending wasn't my favorite. Like, the ending, like the last 20 minutes or so were just kind of cheesy for me. So I don't know, this movie, I feel kind of in the middle about it, but the beginning was so good. It started off so strong. And then I watched the movie Malignant, and honestly, I still right now don't really know how I feel about this movie, because I think this movie's getting a lot of praise and it's getting a lot of hate, and I just kind of feel very in the middle about it. Like, I don't have any strong opinions about it. I think it was like a fun way to pass the time, it was very unique, very strange. I thought the twist was, like, I don't know, it was unexpected for me. I know a lot of people said that they predicted it and that's like the biggest issue that they had with it, but I didn't predict it, like, not really. I don't know. It was just, it was an interesting movie. If you know nothing about this movie, then I would recommend not knowing anything before jumping in, because then I think you'll be a little bit more surprised that way. But this was a time. It was a time. The plot twist is just so bizarre. Okay, the plot twist is it's just so out there. But I also kind of respect it for that, And then I watched the movie The Guilty, which stars Jake Gyllenhaal, which, if you didn't know, Jake Gyllenhaal is my favorite actor. And this was a Netflix movie, actually, which was pretty cool. The thing that's cool about this movie is that it literally all follows from the point of view of the 911 operator that's taking the phone call. So, like, it literally does not cut from his perspective the entire movie. Like, so it's kind of interesting, but it also kind of makes it a little, like, tad boring, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, because the entire movie we're just following him as he's like making phone calls of like trying to stay on the line with this girl who's calling 911. And it was interesting. Like, the movie went by fast, and like it did actually have a really good twist in the movie, so like I'll give it that. But like at the same time, I kind of like wanted just a little bit more from this. But I do think, like, Jake, he really, like, carried this entire movie on his back, because it was literally on him the whole time, which is super impressive to me. Like, I always love watching Jake Gyllenhaal in movies because he's very, like, captivating on screen, and this movie's no different. Like, he's very, he makes you invested in the story. And then I watched There's Someone Inside Your House, and, like, oof, hard 1 out of 5. Don't waste your time watching this one. That's all I'll say. I mean, to be fair, I'm not a huge fan of these newer teen slasher movies that keep coming out, like the Fear Street. I just wasn't a huge fan of that either, and so maybe I'm just not the audience for this one, and that's fair. This was just so cringy in every sense of the word, and I also, like, wasn't a huge fan of this book, so I went in with, like, really low expectations, and it was still disappointing somehow. And then I watched the movie The Strangers, which this is one that came out a long time ago that I've been wanting to watch for freaking years, because everybody talks about this movie and says it's, like, one of the scariest horror movies that they've ever seen, and I definitely understand why people say this is one of the scariest movies they've ever seen, because it just seems so random, right? Like, there's just this whole movie's about a home invasion, which is absolutely terrifying to me. Like, one of my worst fears ever. And I think the thing that makes this movie exceptionally scary is the fact that it doesn't seem like there's a real reason why these people are doing this. And like the idea of somebody just wanting to, you know, torture you or fuck with you just for fun is like, it's just really scary. And I will say the tension like was so high for me for the first like 75% of this movie. I was just like, ooh, like on the edge of my seat, and like, oh my god, there's one scene where this girl, it's like right at the start of this movie where she's like in the kitchen, and this dude thing is like standing right behind her for like the entire clip, and she can't even see it. And it's just like, it just stressed me out so bad. I was like, fuck, no, fuck, no. And so for those reasons, like, I can definitely see why people say this is like one of the scariest horror movies they've ever seen. But I also think as someone who went into the movie thinking this is going to be one of the scariest things that I've ever seen, I ended up feeling a little bit disappointed by the end, just because by the end of the movie, it's so abrupt. It just like ends. You know, and I was like, oh wait, like that's it? Like, I don't know, I just kind of expected a little bit more from this ending. But at the same time, like, wow, my heart was racing for most of this movie, so it was very effective and very well done. And then we ended up watching Don't Breathe, which this is kind of like another home invasion story in a weird way, except for this time we're following these teenagers who break into this man's home. And the thing that makes this story unique is that the man that they're breaking into the home of is blind. He's a blind man, but he's also like a war veteran. And so he's very, like, you know, strong and, like, built, and he's, you know, this huge man, but he's blind. And so it's interesting because, you know, we're just following these three teenagers who are breaking into his house, and they're trying to find this money that he has in the house. And this movie was so intense. It had that actor from 13 Reasons Why and Prisoners, so I really enjoy him as an actor. I think he's really good. I'm like, oh my god, this movie was so intense. I couldn't even fucking breathe. This, like, literally, Don't Breathe is the title. Like, I did not breathe. And it was just very suspenseful, very well done. I really liked the characters in this, and there was such a good, like, twist that happened that I did not see coming, and I was seriously so disturbed by like one of the scenes that was happening at the end of this movie. I was literally like, no. Like, I couldn't stop saying no. It was just so awful. Heard that there's a sequel that just came out this year, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to watch this first one, because everybody was saying that this is like one of the best horror movies. And so I'm so glad that I finally watched it, because it was so good, but I was so like disturbed and uncomfortable the entire time I watched this. And then I finally watched Scream 4. Oh my gosh, I'm just obsessed with the Scream series now. Like, I don't know why it's taken me so long to watch these movies, because I watched the first Scream 1, 2, and 3 last year for the very first time. Ever since, I've just become obsessed with these movies, and I finally watched the fourth movie this year, and this one was so fun because it has Emma Roberts in it and Hayden Panettiere in it. And just, like, such a cool cast in this fourth movie. Like, I had no idea. I loved it so much, actually. Like, I think the fourth one might be my, like, second favorite out of all the Scream movies, which I know is, like, kind of an unpopular opinion, right? Because it seems like a lot of people hate on the fourth movie for some reason. But I just thought it was so, like, campy and fun. And, like, Scream remains to be one of the only slasher movies that I just love. It's just so self-aware and, like, so fun. And it has really great characters. Like, I really love Courtney Cox and David Arquette. Oh my god, they're just so cute. Like, every movie, I'm like, I fucking ship it so hard. And I don't know, I just love the cast of characters that's in Scream. Like, I cannot wait to see the next movie. They announced the Scream 5 is coming out in January, and I just can't believe it. Like, I'm so excited. And then I finally watched Poltergeist, like the actual old Poltergeist from 1980, the original, the OG. I was surprised to say that this movie actually holds up. Like, I thought it was so freaking good. You know, you never know what you're getting yourself into when you watch, you know, a horror movie from the 80s. You know, sometimes it's like cheesy and sometimes it just doesn't hold up. But in this case, I thought this movie held up so well. And I think something that makes this movie even more creepy to watch now is knowing the history of like what happened with that cast shortly after this movie was filmed. It's just, you know, it's really creepy to think about. And there were some scenes in this movie that I thought were so genuinely funny. Like, they actually landed still. Like, this movie, it just feels like it was so ahead of its time. I mean, some of it was definitely cheesy for sure, but it was also just, like, really good. Like, I really loved the family in this movie, and I can see myself rewatching this one because I just really enjoyed it. Like, there was a good twist at the end. I was like, what the fuck? And it was just really good. Really impressed. Really enjoyed it. And then I watched Friday the 13th for the first time ever, and no, not a fan. And see, this is why I feel like I just don't know if I like slashers, because it's movies like this that make me think, No, I don't. But maybe this is just like just this movie, but I really didn't like this movie. It's probably one of my least favorite movies that I've ever seen. It's just so, like everything about it is just, it's not good. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of people that love Friday the 13th, but I can't. It was so cheesy, so over the top. Like the camera work was terrible. It looked like a freaking handheld cam recorder. Maybe that was the point. I don't know. I just didn't enjoy this one. Not for me. And then I watched the movie Dune, the movie this year, the one that just came out in 2021 with Timothée Chalamet. And ooh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't unsubscribe, but I didn't like this movie either. Ooh. Okay, you don't understand. I wanted to love Dune so bad, okay? It was actually one of my most anticipated movies of the year because the director is one of my favorite directors of all time because he's directed Blade Runner 2049, Prisoners, Arrival, like, you know, some of my favorite movies ever. So I was highly, highly anticipating Dune. Like, I was expecting it to be a new all-time favorite, and I just felt so confused and so underwhelmed and so lost. I had no idea what was going on this entire movie. And I know, you know, it's hard because I know, like, a lot of people that are really big fans of the book are really enjoying this movie, but I feel like it's because they're fans of the book, like they're already familiar with the story, whereas people like me who, you know, I DNF this book like 150 pages in, and I have absolutely no idea about this world or this universe. Like, it would just, I didn't understand anything. It just went way over my head, and I was just not having a good time, you know? It was just a very lifeless, hollow movie. It just felt like it needed more, like, fucking life in it, you know, or, like, energy. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just boring. It was so boring. I didn't give a shit about any of the characters in it because they just didn't have, like, personalities, you know? It was just, I don't know. It was just not my thing. Like, I mean, high sci-fi fantasy isn't really my thing anyways, but I had high hopes because I love this director, but it's a beautiful movie. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful movie. It's stunning to look at, absolute masterpiece on the screen, but the story itself will bore you to tears. Oh my god, it was just so boring. And then I watched the movie Before I Wake, and this is one that I've been interested in watching for a long time because not only do I love the actor Jacob Tremblay, he's like absolutely adorable, but also because this is the same director, Mike Flanagan. It's the creator of The Haunting of Hill House. And this is a movie that he came out with in like 2016, I want to say. And this movie was pretty good. Like, I don't know, I thought it was so well done. I think the premise of this movie is really interesting because we're following these two parents who, they had a son of their own who passed away. And so because of that, they decide to adopt this other son who's kind of close to the age of their son when their son died. And this adopted son who comes and lives in their house, every time he sleeps, there's this like thing called like a Mothman or something that like forms and starts to attack and kill people. And it's interesting because, you know, the little boy, he knows that this happens, so he like does his best to stay awake. And it's really fascinating, you know? Like, I don't know, I thought it wasn't too scary of a movie, so if you're going into this to be scared, you might be a little bit disappointed, but I just thought the concept was really interesting and the characters were really interesting. And then we watched The Night House, which this is a horror movie that I've been so excited about for a long time because I've been seeing some really great reviews for this one, and I absolutely understand why, because this movie is pretty phenomenal. Because we're following this woman who, you know, her husband has recently passed away. We kind of get to follow her as she's kind of discovering secrets about his life that she didn't know that he had some stuff going on. And this movie, it's just the journey that this movie takes you on is very unexpected. It's very unique. This movie, I don't know why it was reminding me of like a Karen Slaughter book or something. It was just, the writing was so well done. The characters were so interesting. Like, I loved this protagonist that we were following in this movie. I just felt like she was very like relatable. The freaking, like, the end of this movie is just like the places it goes, you'll just be like, what? Like, what is happening? It's just so good. It's one of those movies that will absolutely mindfuck you, and you'll have to go online and be like, what the fuck did I just watch? And I love that shit. I love it. Those are like my favorite kind of movies where you're just like so puzzled and you're just like, what did I just see at the end there? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You gotta Google it, you gotta investigate. Love it so much. Like, it was so freaking good, and it was definitely one of my favorite horror movies that I've seen this year. And then I finally watched Trick or Treat. I actually watched this one on Halloween. How adorable, how perfect. And this is one that, again, I've been wanting to watch this movie for a while now. I think I actually heard about this movie earlier this year or last year for like the first time. Like before that, I had never even heard of this movie. And this movie is just so cool and it's so original because in this movie, it's actually an anthology movie. So in this one movie, we have 4 short stories in the movie, and we get to follow these 4 different sets of characters on Halloween night. And something's going on with all 4 of them, and it eventually kind of like all the stories get connected a little bit in a way. And it's just so cool. It's so freaking cool. And like the little pumpkin dude, Sam, I think his name is Sam, like amazing, so adorable, loved his character. And then I also watched the All Too Well short film. You didn't think I'd forget about that one, did you? And if you didn't know, this short film is written and directed by Taylor Swift, the queen herself. And wow, this short film was beautiful. It was stunning. It's only like 15 minutes long. It's basically like an extended music video with some extra clips of them fighting. And Sadie Sink and Dylan O'Brien are in it, and like what the heck, they were so good in this. And I actually think like, wow, Taylor Swift has an eye for directing because this was beautiful. Like the shots of like the freaking fall leaves and the way it was like all in, you know, the little square the whole time, and I don't know, I just thought it was so beautiful. And of course like the 10-minute All Too Well has like taken over my entire existence. And then the last movie that I wanted to mention is this movie called Red Notice, which was on Netflix. It has Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot, and The Rock. And not gonna lie, we mainly ended up watching this movie because my sister's boyfriend is really obsessed with The Rock. And I'm a huge fan of Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot, so it just kind of, you know, it just kind of worked out. And honestly, this movie was pretty fun. You know, it wasn't like, if you go into this movie expecting something more serious, you're probably going to be disappointed. And while this movie is, you know, pretty cheesy and pretty cliche at times, I just had a good time watching it, you know? I just really love Ryan Reynolds. He just, like, anytime he's on the screen, it's just, he's so funny. And he's just so relatable and, like, I don't know, he's effortlessly funny. So I don't know, Ryan Reynolds just like makes me smile the whole time, so I just really ended up enjoying this. I thought it was pretty fun. I mean, it was like your average like middle of the road, you know, 3 out of 5 kind of movie, but if you're just, you know, bored on a Friday night looking for a good time, then, you know, you can just throw this one on. It's watchable, you know, that's the most important thing, is that it's watchable. But yeah, those are all of the movies and TV shows that I've watched over these last few months. I know it's actually a lot. Like, I've actually watched so many. I was so excited about the fact that I got to watch so many of the movies that I had on my list for October. I mean, I still do have a very extensive list of the movies I still do need to see. But yeah, let me know if you've also watched any of these TV shows or movies. What are your thoughts on them? Like, what are you feeling about them? What are some of your favorite TV shows of the year so far? Because I'm very curious to know. I actually do plan on doing a video you know, later on this month that's going to be like my favorite TV shows of 2021. And like, spoiler alert, but quite a few of the TV shows mentioned on this list are probably going to be mentioned on my favorites of the year list because wow. But yeah, let me know what are your favorite things that you've been watching this year. And thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye.